Okay, we are on Daf Mem Gimel Amid Aleph, really the very last line of Mem Beis Amid Beis. We're doing 43a, but really the very bottom of 42 be the last couple words. Before we start, I like to say an inspirational story relating to what we were just discussing of having too much money. Well, maybe not, but okay. A story from Rabbi Bamberger, in a shkiach in Yeshiva in America. It says an Israeli family had bought in a building, and they bought because they knew that they could expand. They could build out a little bit. They needed to build out a little bit. People do that once in a while here.
Yes.
Yeah. On occasion. So I can hear. I can imagine. It probably sounds like. Yeah.
I did for 7 months. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, he's worried it's going to be more than 7 months. That's what he's worried.
Can't believe it's going into the Hallel. 7 months, 7:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
7 months for using spoons?
It's a Hallel. God knows what it is.
Sorry.
Halal. 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 It's obviously halal. Halal, not Hallel. Halal.
Yeah. Okay. So this story, I remember, is a story about a family who bought in a building, and one of the reasons they were interested in this building is because they could build out, expand. Little do they know that their downstairs neighbor, was an upstairs neighbor, whatever. Neighbor was a mobster, a mafia fellow, a very powerful mafia fellow who warned them in no uncertain terms that the last thing in the world they want to do is make noise in his building. So they decided the prudent thing would be not to do it. But it was very difficult living with this fellow. He was very, he was Jewish, but he was very anti-religious. And he made their lives miserable, to say the least. So they decided they're going to move. So they tried selling it, and everyone found out that there was this mobster, this mafia fellow in the building, and it came to the point they were willing to take a tremendous loss. The apartment was worth, I don't know, $1 million shekel. They wanted to sell it for 250,000 even. Didn't know what to do. So they went to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and they asked him, what should they do? He said, don't move. There you are. Hashem will solve the problem for you. He'll get rid of him. No, he's been there so long. Okay, we'll trust. Badallar said, well, we'll trust. They trusted him. A week later, it was hard because they knew that was it. They can wait for 20 years. The next week, on their block, a big truck knocked into some poles or the electrical substation or something, completely knocked out the power in the whole area for just complete. Not like the electric company comes down and solves it in 3 minutes. And they had to it took a week, 2 weeks to solve all that, rewire everything. In the meantime, everyone's out of electricity. This mobster, this mafia guy, had a very elaborate security system, as you can imagine. He had a lot of money on him and all that, but it got completely knocked out. So that week, some robbers knew about this, and they broke into his apartment. They stole $1 million in cash, and it was still not fixed electricity. This guy was a nervous wreck. He had almost like a breakdown. This mobster. He ran away, never came back. A little while later, some developer came and bought the whole building, and from this family, he bought them traded them into her new apartment, really nice one where they wanted, and everything worked out for them. Baruch Hashem. The lesson is like this. Many lessons. If you have to have construction in your building, make sure there's a mobster living there. No, that's not the lesson. The lesson is that sometimes it seems like there's no end to the problem. Sometimes there's no end. Believe in Hashem. Believe in those who are His servants, His Talmidei Chachamim, who are there to guide us. And also that when you have a problem, just be mom. And sometimes it's not forever. It's not forever. As we know, many times in life, you see that you have an issue, a year, a month, 6 months, 10 years. Eventually, keep davening, and eventually, Hashem will resolve it for us. That's okay. And also, don't buy into a building with a mobster. Maybe do, because then it works out. Okay, so that's the story, lesson, and inspiration for today. God willing, hope you're inspired. I like that one a lot. Okay. So we're on the bottom of Daf Mem Beis Amid Beis, just the last line, because we want to transition into Mem Gimel. The Gemara is explaining the Mishnah. In the first couple parts, we're deriving where we get these halachas from in the Mishnah, that where or we do not take Shavuos d'oraisa. And that's the first part. And then the very end of the daf is the Mishnah. It's a new Mishnah that introduces the concept of mashkon for us, of a collateral. When you lend with a collateral, how does that work? And that will take us on for a little bit after that. So that's where we start. Before we get started, that's a quick point from the Rambam. We mentioned there are four things that don't, from the Mishnah, four things that do not take an oath for. Oath d'oraisa, biblical oath. For example, if it involves a case of you have a claim of, there's one witness against you, or you're partially admitting, for example, the Shavuos d'oraisa, the oath that you're required to take from the Torah. One of them, it says, one exception is when it's hektish, when it involves hektish. So you have a case where there's one witness against you about hektish or partial admittance when it comes to something that was donated to the Beis Hamikdash. You don't take an oath. But the Rambam says, from the Torah you don't take an oath, but the Rabbanan instituted takana, you do take an oath for hektish. So that's just a little thing to know. Okay, so let's continue where we are. We're on the very bottom of Mem Beis Amid Beis, 42b, last line, last couple words. Shomer Chinam Eno Nishba, right in the middle between the two dots. A Shomer Chinam is somebody who's watching something for somebody else without pay. And normally, if that thing gets taken, it gets stolen or lost. It's a case of Gneva Veda, and despite his best efforts, it got stolen or lost. He reasonably watched it. He is normally a person would be chayav to take a shul, would have to take an oath to the owner of that item that he watched it, and that is not liable to pay. However, if it's a case involving avadim, shtaros, karkos, vekteshos, one of those four cases, if it involves slaves, a contract, land, or something for hektish. For example, let's say he was watching shtaros, contracts for someone, and he's not getting paid.
Doesn't promise, right?
Right, he doesn't have to pay, but he does have to swear.
Promise, no?
I'm sorry?
You don't,
Nishba.
no, doesn't pay, promise.
No, he doesn't swear. Yeah, he doesn't have to swear in that case, correct. So the question, how do we know that fact? How do we know it doesn't swear by these particular cases? How do we know these are exceptions to the rule? Normally he does have to swear, but here he doesn't. Menahani Mili, the Tana Rabbana. How do we know it? From Brisa. Flip the page. Get too far of that. Right, Ahmad. Move on to Mem Gimel Amid Aleph 43. Okay, so there's different types of shomrim. Before I even explain this, there's different types of shomrim. We're going to get that in the last paragraph. There's shomer chinam, someone who watches for free. Shomer sacher, someone who watches for pay, for example. Shoel, a borrower. Each of those has a pasuk in the Torah. So we're going to, by each pasuk, by each type of, we're going to discuss some or two types of people. One person, the shomer chinam, who's watching for free. There's a unpaid watching. He has a pasuk. The pasuk describes his case in the Torah, and we're going to darshan that pasuk. We're going to expound on that pasuk. It says, and the Brisa says, Ki yitin isha re'eyo, when a person gives to his friend. Klal, that's a general rule. It's an overarching principle, all-inclusive. It includes all types of things that are given. Then it says kesef okelim, whether it's money or vessels. Prat, that limits the types of thing that we're discussing. Lishmor, and it says to guard. That chazer v'klal, and it goes back and gives a general rule again. We have the principle here, klal upratu klal. We have says something general, all-inclusive, then it limits it to what it includes, and then it says again a general principle that's more all-inclusive. Klal, pratu klal. General, specific, and general. Klal, pratu klal. Yadadan elakein prat. Like Rabbi Shmuel, we only done like the prat. We only say that things are included, that a shomer chinam, someone who's watching for free, has to swear that he wasn't negligent. In things like for specific things that he's watching, like it is that are similar to the prat, to what it says in the pasuk. Ma prat mefurash davar hametalta v'gufo mammon. Just like the specific examples that are given in the pasuk are things that are metaltalin, movable items, and they are inherently money or have some inherent value to them, like kesef, like silver or coins and vessels. Af kol davar metaltal v'guvam mammon. So to anything that is movable object, and inherently has value. Those are the things that if a shomer chinam was watching something and it was stolen or lost, he has to take an oath. Is only specifically by a case where the thing he's holding onto is a metaltalin, movable item, and it also has inherent value. Yatsu karkos she'enu metaltalin. The pasuk is excluding. You don't have to take an oath if it's karkos, if it's a matter of land, which is not metaltalin. It's obviously not a movable object. Yatsu avodim excludes non-Jewish servants, hushula karkos, because they are compared as a hekesh to karkos, to land. Yatsu shtaros, we exclude contracts, shafal pishim metaltalin, even though they're movable, obviously, we move them. Ein gufan mama, they're not inherently valuable. As we mentioned yesterday, and Rashi previously in the Masechta said that even though a contract represents money, but it's not inherently money, it doesn't have real inherent value. And hektish, the case of hektish, those things that were dedicated to the base of Mikdash are excluded. Why? Because the pasuk says re'ehu, to his fellow, and hektish is not his fellow. Ksiv, ksiv. Right, so therefore, those are the things that are excluded based on the pasuk. So with the pasuk, we see certain things are included and not. That's why these things, and in the Mishnah, that's how we know these things in the Mishnah do not make you take shomer chinam, take an oath. So I have to take a shua. Okay.
Generalization, specification, generalization.
Right.
I ask you to look after my. If a man gives his fellow to watch, I give you a kettle that is specific. It's not a general. So where does general, specific, and generalization come into it? I can understand general things. Then you've got specific things. Then you've got other general things. If a man gives a fellow something to watch, he's giving him something specific, not general.
Right. No, the general, specific, general is just the way the pasuk is listed. It gives you. It says first everything you have to take an oath for, that if you borrow it, if it gets lost or it gets stolen. Then the Torah says no, only specific things that are like money or like vessels. Then the pasuk says again, all things that you are watching, if you're negligent, if it gets stolen or lost, shomer chinam would have to take an oath for it. So why does it say a general principle, which seems to include everything that he'd be watching? If it gets stolen or lost, he has to take an oath that he wasn't negligent. Then it says specific things, and then it says general again. In what case do you have to take an oath? Is it by everything, or is it by very limited things that makes you take an oath if it was stolen or lost? It says general, everything, very specific things in general. That type of setup in the pasuk teaches you that only things that are like the things mentioned, the specific things mentioned in the pasuk, they have the quality of being movable items and have inherent value. That teaches you the things that require a shomer chinam, someone who's watching something from somebody else without getting paid. If it's get lost or stolen, he takes an oath that he wasn't negligent by being similar to those mentioned in the pasuk, things that are movable and have inherent value. So kalim, movable items, telephones, tables, things like that. If you're watching them and they get stolen or lost, you have to take an oath. But if it involves a contract, for example, that you're watching, and it gets lost, then you would not have to take an oath because it doesn't have inherent value. That's the distinction. Okay, so we move on to the next case. No say sachar, a shomer sachar, someone who's watching but is getting paid. Einu mishalem. Normally, what happens is, that was yesterday. Not after that yet. Normally, if the person watching your item for you is getting paid to do so, babysitting your item for pay for 7 shekel an hour, whatever it is. So that person, if it's lost or stolen, for Gneva or Veda, if it gets lost or stolen, he is liable to pay. That's the halacha. We'll learn that in the last parak, Be'ezras Hashem. He is liable to pay. But if it involves one of these 4 things, servants, avodim shtaros, karkos, vekdesha, servants, contracts, land, or something that's been makdish, consecrated, dedicated to the base of Mikdash, is would not have to pay. So how do we know that these are exceptions to the rule? So the Gemara continues, this exact same drasha we made twice already, expounding the same way. Minolan, but from a different pasuk. This is the pasuk in the Torah that refers to a shomer sachar, someone who's guarding something that gets paid. Minolan, how do we know that the no se sachar, a shomer sachar, a person is watching something for somebody else for pay, and it gets lost or stolen, he has to pay. He has to pay normally, but these four cases are exceptions. Land, staros, etc. We know how we know that. The Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Brisa, Yitin ish areyeu, the person gives to his fellow. Kalal. That's an overarching general rule. I mean, sounds like everything. If a shomer sachar would have to pay if it gets lost or stolen. It's kalal. Chamor oshor oseh. There's some animals. Chamor, donkey, sheep, prat. It sounds like only those specific things would require one to pay if it was lost or stolen. Chamor shor set prat, limiting. B'chol behema lishmor. Then it says any animal you're watching. Chaza or klal. Then it goes back and gives a general rule. Klal or prat or klal. It's a general, specific, and general, and it's chule, etc. Iatadan kelden prat. Then we know that the Torah is telling us that only things that a shomer sachar, a paid watcher, would have to pay for if it gets lost or stolen are things that are like those mentioned in the pasuk, which are things that are movable items and things that have inherent value. What are excluded from that? Excluded from that is excluded from that are all the things that we mentioned before. Land, not movable. Slaves are compared to land. Staros, contracts do not have inherent value. And the last thing, hektish re'yoksi. And also, by hektish, it says re'ehu, his fellow, and the Beis Hamikdash, the things that are holy are not his friend. When referring to he owes it to his friend. Okay. That's how we know those two ideas. That's how we learn that.
Like custodian, you have to pay, like in the previous paragraph, that money or utensils, if they've got lost or stolen, you have to pay.
Right. Right.
Exactly the same.
Right. Same thing. Yeah. Yeah. We have to pay. There he has to swear. Here he has to pay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. If he doesn't want to swear, he'll pay out. Yeah.
He hasn't got the option to spend.
Right.
I've got to pay for the job. Surely a commercial venture.
Right.
Like the previous one, when you're doing something with Toba.
Right. Different thing. Different type of, yeah. We'll discuss that. I like that terminology, paid custodian. I like that. I'll have to remember that. Paid custodian. That's what Alan is. Paid custodian. Shomer sachar. Paid custodian. I like that. Okay, let's continue. The next two dots for Meir Omer. Let's enlarge this a bit. Okay, Meir Omer. Two dots and two dots. Okay, next part. Now we're going to analyze the next part of the Mishnah. Rav Meir Omer Yesh Dvarim Shein Kekarka Ve'ein Kekarka. Rav Meir said, he said there was a case in the Mishnah that said that a person says things are like karka, things are not like karka. Something's attached to the ground, like the example given, you have vines that have grapes attached to them. So if a person says, you're holding on to whatever you owe, 10 grapevines attached to land, they're full of grapes, and he says, the other guy says, no, I only have to give you 5. That's like partially admitting motive mixus, which would normally generate an oath. Rav Meir said he's still liable to have to give a shul. He has to take an oath, even though it involves land, because seemingly that's not considered like land, even though it's attached to land. The Chachamim say, no, if it's attached to land, mechuber lakarka, harika karka. If it's attached to land, the same status as land, and you don't swear for partial admittance by land. Well, let's see that in detail here. Right, great. So we're going to talk about that, yeah, in a second, yeah. Right. Right. That's what we're going to discuss right now. Yeah. Yeah. Rings a bell. Let's see where it would be. Dalit. Yeah, Bab Metzia. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the Masaras Hashas. They're just would have to be. Okay. Rav Meir Omer Yesh Ram Shem Karka ve'ein Karka. There are things that are like that are like karka and not like karka, like land. Mechlal, that implies the Rabbi Meir savar kol mechuber karka ein karka. That's what it sounds like. Rabbi Meir would hold that something that's attached to the ground, like these grapevines, don't have the same status as land, because he says you would have to swear if you claim you only own half. Right? If it would be land, you wouldn't have to swear. But Rabbi Meir says it's not like land. That's what it seems to imply. Otherwise, why are you swearing? So the Gemara asks, "Ademifliki betunos, lifliki besrukos." If they're arguing once they're arguing about vines that are full of grapes, let them argue about vines that are empty, that are barren. By the right word, because according to Rabbi Meir, it's not a function of the fact that the grapes there. It's whatever it is, as long as it's. He holds that vegetation, whatever that's attached to the ground, doesn't have the same status as the land. So why are you specifically mentioning the case according to Reb Meir? Why does it have to be specifically grapes that are vines that are full of grapes? Ella, we have to redefine the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. Ella, Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina. Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, says, Hacha ba'navim omdos libatzer kamivlidi. What are we discussing? We're arguing about. They're arguing about grapes that are fully ripened and ready to picked. They're completely done. The timer went off in the oven. Ding, ready to go. The Rabbi Meir savar kibetzuras dana. Rabbi Meir holds that if they are ready to pick and they're fully ripened, it's as if they're harvested already. Rabbanan savari lo kibetzuras dana. Low kibbutzuras, even though they're ready to pick and they're fully ripened, they're not like they're picked. In other words, everyone holds that something mechuber l'karka is kikarka. Something that's attached to the ground, the general rule has the same status as land itself, generally speaking. But here we're talking about grapes that are fully ripened and ready to be picked. So they according to Rabbi Meir, it's as if they're picked already, even though they're technically attached, but they're fully ripened. It's as if their status is as if they're picked already. So therefore, they don't have the status of land. Wouldn't swear about them. According to the Chachamim, even though they're fully ripened and ready to go, it's not like they've been harvested already. Not like they're picked yet. But they do have the status of land, and you wouldn't swear for partially admitting with regard to those grapes.
What about the aha? If they are the difference between 5 and 10,
right,
is money.
Right.
If one holds that. I've given you 5, there's 5 left. There's a differential of 5, which is lots of money, lots of grapes,
right,
money.
Right.
So doesn't that come into the fruition as well as the movable property or not movable property?
Right.
Or part of the land or not part of the land.
Right. So that's what our mayor wants to say. He says they're like Meir says they are the same like movable property. They're like movable items, like kalim, like vessels, because they're as if they're fully off the land. The Chachamim say no, they're attached to the land. They have their status of land, even though they're money, like you said. But according to the Chachamim, since they're attached to the land still, they have the status of land, not like movable items, not like vessels. According to Rav Meir, like you said, they're money, and they're as if they're detached from the land, and therefore he's partially admitting to money. He would swear. That would. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Whether you swear or not. Yeah. Whether you would swear. I think it was like Rav Meir. Rav Meir said kibutzuras namim. They're like picked already, and they don't have the status of land, and then you would have to swear. Fully ripe. Yeah, I guess so. I know you had that cutoff, but it seems to say. Yeah. They're fully ripened. Yeah. Yeah.
At any point, whether it was mature on the tree, and it gets to a certain point where the farmer now the time to harvest, because that's when either they're going to be edible or
right.
Taste may be. But until you actually harvest,
they're not grapes per se. There's obviously.
They are attacked. How he comes is that because they're ripe, they could be picked in one, I don't know, 14 days.
Yeah, it's an interesting svara. Tosas adds something.
I mean, I agree with this on him, that if they're not fully harvested, they're part of the land.
Right, correct.
Must agree
Yeah,
with that.
that's correct. That's exactly right. Yeah,
And if they're harvested,
and they did this.
Then they're separate.
they're movable.
Then everyone
If they're
agrees.
not movable,
Right.
they're
Right.
part of the land.
Right, very good. It's the middle stage that they disagree. So Tosfos, let's take a look at Tosfos, the second Tosfos, because you brought this up, right? So what does that mean? They're like they're detached, according to Rameir. Does that mean they're really, really, really detached? What about on Shabbos? If they're like they're detached, so if you pull them off the ground, you're not liable, you're not chayav on Shabbos for removing them. If they're like they're detached, what does that mean? So Tosfos says, second Tosfos, Nira to le'inyan Shabbos l'chulayam alav k'metzuras damnon. According to everyone, when it comes to Shabbos, the halachos of Shabbos, they're not like they're detached. Because if you would detach them, you would be chayav for harvesting on Shabbos. The gamrinon mikatzira samamonim choisa la'achar she'omnim likotzer. Because the reason the source that we learn the prohibition of katsira, of harvesting on Shabbos, is from the samamonim, the dyes they use to dye their yiriyah, the curtains, whatever you call it, curtains for the Mishkan, and they obviously were ripe and ready to go when they picked them. They didn't put them in the lights till after they picked them. They were ready to go after they. So obviously we see that that's what we learn. They have fully ripened items that were picked, and that's the source that picking or harvesting is forbidden. So obviously, if even something is completely ripened, everyone would hold for Shabbos. They're not. He goes on and gives other examples. It's clear. It gives about Balchov and someone who's owed money and takes the land if they're fully harvested grapes. It's clear that this principle is limited. It's not that any time you have grapes or anything, fruit that is fully ripened, it's completely like in every halachic aspect, like it's removed. For this halacha, in terms of shua, that's one thing, but not for this. The Rim Gash, the Rebbe of the Rambam's father, not his only claim to fame, but he says, if you sell grapes that are attached, let's say you're selling grapes to attach to the ground, right? He says they don't have the status of karka. It sounds like Rav Meir, right? It's like they're removed already. In terms of a couple of things. First, you wouldn't take a shua. You wouldn't take an oath about them. And also, there's a halach of overpricing. If some overprices something more than 1/6, normally that's grounds to invalidate the sale. If it's more than 1/6. But by karkos, that wouldn't apply to land. So, but this is not like land, he says. Ripened grapes, he says, halacha, you sell them, you sell like you have a vineyard, you sell all the grapes, you can go and pick them. It doesn't have the halachas that go along with karka, with land. It has like movable items. Rimagash is paskin like the Rameir, that's seemingly how he paskin. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, let's continue. We are. Okay, let's have a drink also. Okay, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines in the fifth to last narrow line. There's 2 dots there. The Mishnah specified we don't only take an oath when they're arguing regarding something that is measurable. So Amar Abaye, Lo Shanu, El Amar Le Bayistam. That was the example when we said that's not measurable. He says, I lent you, I gave you a house full of grain. Bayistam. Aval Amar Le Bayizeh Male says this house full of grain. Yedia Tani say his claim is known. His claim is known. It's considered a finite amount. That's according to Abaye. That's according to Abaye. That's according to Abaye. So Amarle Rava says back to Abaye, Ihachi adatani seifa ze omed ze omer ad aziz ze omer ad hachalon chayev. If that's true, and that's what we're talking about, instead of saying that the next part where we give an example of things that are measurable, instead of saying this one says to the ziz, as you said yesterday, Rashi, ziz, where is it? a kora shel aliyah aboletes bitoch habayis. It's some support beam, a roof beam that sticks out. He says, until that beam. The other guy says, no, until the window. Instead of giving that as an example of measurable things, liflog v'lisnei b'didei, arguing the very thing we're discussing. When do we say that that's not measurable? When he simply says a full house full. Aval bayis zeh mole. But if he says this house that's full of grain chayiv, that should be the alternative. If that's what you're saying, why go off? If we're saying that that's enough, this house full is enough to be measurable. So use that as an example in the Mishnah of something that's full. Why start going off to talking about the support beam and the windows? Just discuss what we're discussing already. Amarava, and so Rava says, La'olam, Eino chayev ad sheyitanenu b'davar shevmidah v'mishkal v'minyan. The only time you're liable that you would have to take an oath for partial admittance is when when he claims that something that's measurable, that's that has a midah, measure, a mishkal, weight, a minyan, number, the yodala, when he admits to him midah, mishkal, minyan, something measurable. Tani kavase de Rava. We learn the brisa that's like Rava. Kor tfua li biyadcha. You're holding on to my core, large measure of grain. Allah Amar ein lecha biyadi pater. He says, no, I don't have anything in yours. So that's complete denial. That doesn't require a shua. He's pater. He's absolved of having taken oath. Menorah gedola yesh li biyadcha. You're holding on to my large lamp, lantern, whatever it was. Ein lecha biyadi ela menorah katana. Pater. He said, no, I'm only holding on to your small one. And as Rashi says, ein hodam yimin hakfira, mashatana lahodalo. No, it's not. He didn't admit to the same species, same type of thing that he's claiming. Mashaton lahodalo. What he claimed, he's not admitting to. They're two. A large and small lamp are like two different things entirely. They're two different species. I guess you would say. And therefore, would be pater, would be absolved of taking a shua. Azura gedoli yeshli biyadcha. You're holding on to my large belt. No, I'm only holding on to your small belt. That's, again, they're two different types of things entirely. And so therefore, it's not partial admittance. It's like denying the whole thing. They're not talking the same wavelength. It's like, give me back my refrigerator. There's no holding on to your chair. They're different enough that it's not admittance. It's different things they're talking about. Aval, he uses the brisa, Amar lo kur tua yesh li biyad. You're holding on to my core of grain. It's a large amount. Fala Omar, and the other fellow says back, Ein lecha biyadi el letzach. Only until like a half quart. That's a partial admittance. So chayev, he would be liable to take a shur, liable to take an oath. Another case, menorah bas eser litrin yesh li biyad. You're holding on to my lantern, my lamp that holds 10 litrin, like a liquid measure, or not liquid measure, a measure, volume. Ein lecha biyadi el bas chamesh litrin. No, I'm only holding on to your lamp that holds 5 litrin. Sounds like liter. Chayev. That's partial admitting. Kololo shel davar. General rule is lo lam enu chayev ad sheyitnenu davar shav midah mishkal minyan. He's only liable if he claims that with regard to something that is measurable. The yodalo, he admits to him, partially admits the davar shav midah mishkal minyan. Something that is measurable as well. You have to claim and like X amount and that's measurable, and partially deny something that's measurable also, and then you'll be chayev. You'll be liable to take an oath for partial admittance for the rest, for the part that you're denying.
Why do they not ever measure all this? I mean, they say up to the ceiling, up to the window. How do they ever measure the whole amount?
That is a measure. That is a measure.
That's
Up to the ceiling is a measure.
up to the ceiling beam.
One measure. From the ground to the window is one measure. From the ground to the ceiling is another measure.
The building's there.
It's a measure.
You can calculate the cube.
They've told you the measure. From the ground to the window is a measure. And from the ground to the ceiling is a measure.
Which one is correct?
Huh? Two different measures.
If you say, if he says,
If one claims up to the window and I say, no, a part owns up to the ceiling, that's the square, because it's a part.
okay. So we continue.
I disagree, but I'll agree.
so
The height.
Yeah.
It's an indication.
assuming it's square, it works. It's round, it's more complicated. Okay. Klolo shel davar. We are right in the middle of the wide lines. Klolo shel davar lasuye mai. Gemara analyzes this. Klolo shel davar lasuye mai. What is this klolo? Why is it klolo? This general principle. What is it coming to include? Lav lasuye, is it not to include bias zeh mole? Coming to teach you that if he says bias zeh, this house full of grain, that is not considered a measurable thing. Only if he says this house up to this particular beam, that would be measurable. If he says up to the beam, it's measurable. As I say, it's a subtlety. It's a subtlety. Okay.
Household produce is not a measure, is it?
No.
It's a lump sum. It's a lump.
Oops, sorry.
Two different factors here. Which one do you take when you get a claim?
Okay.
House full of measure, house full of produce, you don't have to sweep. It's not a measure.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
up to
that's-
the window, up to the ceiling, two different
Yeah.
measures. You have to sweep.
It's a subtlety. It's a subtlety. It's yeah.
Stick with me, I'll teach you, don't worry.
Yes,
Okay.
so-
Okay. So the Gemara continues. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines above the Mishnah. 6 lines above the Mishnah, right in the middle there. It says Umai. It's like a little circle there. Umai shna menorah gedola. We're going to analyze what they said in the Brisa. Umai shna menorah gedola or menorah katana. What's the distinction between a large menorah, a lamp, and a small lamp? Enter lamp. Masha tanu lo hodolo, or masha hodolo tanu. In other words, they're two different things entirely. We may think they're the same, but they're not. What he admitted to, what he claimed, he's not admitting to. What he admitted to, he's not claiming. If that's so, bas eser, bas chamesh nami. The case of the lamp that holds 5 litrin, and the one that holds 10 are also two different species entirely. Masha tanu lo hodu, masha hodu lo tanu. Did I skip something?
Tanya,
Tanya, maybe I did.
putting a brass or a corner to rubber.
Hold on a second. Let me just backtrack the drop. What I missed? Tanya kavasi de rava. No, we did the Shavuos answer. Korsha tua libiatcha. Lo amar ein lecha biyadi pater. Menor gdol yesh biyad. He says the first part. I'll read it again if you want. Yeah, again. Tanya kavasi de rava. The Brisa said like Rava. Kor tua yesh libiatcha. Lo amar ein lecha biyadi pater. He says you owe me holding on to my core of grain, produce, whatever. And he says, I'm not holding anything, he's pater. He doesn't have to swear because there's no admittance. He completely denies it. A large menorah, large lamp you're holding on to, pater. Also, the two different species entirely, so to speak, two different items unconnected. So they are unconnected, two different types. So not partial admittance, it's complete denial. Pater. Same thing. Large belt, small belt, two different things. If he partially admits, then he would be chayiv taken off. Menorah bas eser. If he says 10 and 5, that he's partial admittance, he would be liable. The general principle: olam ein chayiv ad sheyatanu b'davar shemid l'mishkol minyan yodlo b'davar shemid l'mishkol minyan. Has to claim and admit from a measurable thing. What is the general principle coming to include? My lav lasuya biasem. Isn't coming to include that? Include what? Include that you're not chayav. For when he says biasem, this house full of produce is not a measurable item. What's the distinction between a large menorah and a small menorah? That makes them two different, because they're two different items entirely. Tana, masha tana lo hodu, masha hodu lo tanu. Well, he claimed he didn't admit. What he admitted, he didn't claim. Ihachi, bas eser bas chamesh nami, masha tana lo hodu, masha hodu lo tanu. So too, a lamp of 5 and a lamp of 10, they're completely different items. Why is that partial admittance? They're completely different. So Amar of Shmuel bar Yitzchak said, Ach menorah shel chuyos eskinen. We're dealing with a menorah of chuyos, which is like links, little pieces that are put together, that are like assembled one together. The kamoda lemine, he said it's 5, or he said it's 10, but they're really the same thing. They're all a lamp of chulios, of pieces that are assembled together. One's larger, one's smaller, it's the same thing. Ihachi, if that's so, Azura Nami. Ihachi Azura Nami Nisni Velukmi B'Delaife. We should say that it's talking about a belt that's stitched together with different pieces, patches put together. And also, well, you have one that's bigger, one that's smaller, so do the same thing. So that should also be a case where it's considered the same thing, and it's partial admittance. Ella delaifi lokatani. No, we're not talking about a case of a stitched together belt. We're talking about a whole belt. So he says, if that's so, hachanami, so to here. Michel chuyos lokatani. Maybe we're not talking about a lamp that is made of pieces, that's assembled. El Amar Abba Bar Mamal, he says, what's the principle? Abba, the son of Mamal, says, Shani menorah is different. Whole of the yochel grora la mida chamesh litrin. Since you're able to scrape or sand or whatever the word is, to scrape down a menorah that's large from 10 to 5, in theory, it's really the same thing. So as Rashi explains it a little bit better, last Rashi on the Gemara, he says, "Aval begadol v'gatana lekel meimer hafi." By a large and small menorah, you can't say that. Maybe they are a standard lamp of large and small size. Wouldn't be able to say scrape it down. They're just too different. That's what he means. Ubazora, and when it comes to a belt, lekel meimer chatach and mena. Shareshe nikaran. You can't say that. Okay, well, a long and small belt that's stitched together may be really the same because if you stitch it back up, put them together, the cuts are recognizable. But when it comes to a menorah from 10 to 5, if you scrape it down, it wouldn't be recognizable, apparently. So it's really the same thing. And that's why one says, menorah of 10 you owe me, I gave you one, I have to hold you one of 5. That's partial admittance, and then he would have to swear. So those are...
The previous paragraph, the defendant and the plaintiff in the defendant says that I have nothing in your possession.
Right.
Is pottery, but he has to take a rabbinic kurav and an esses.
Yeah. So we're talking about, very good. We're talking about Shavuos D'Oraisa here.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah. So Shavuos Hesses is what they often make you take when it comes to. We started talking about in the previous Mishnah. Somewhere.
Candlesticks in your possession,
right.
And core of grain in your possession.
Right.
Defendant denies it.
Shur D'Rabbanan, right. Shur D'Rabbanan is different. Yeah, correct. Okay, so now we're up to the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah, get this off the page here. It seems to want to work. Oh, I don't know if that's what I wanted to do, but okay. Okay. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I'm having some highlighting issues. Okay. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay. So the Mishnah is now going to discuss a case of a mashkon. Somebody lends something to somebody, but instead of just lending, he asks the borrower to give him a collateral, some sort of item to hold on to while during the term of the loan, in order to sort of guarantee. Tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem, and the day after that, that's tomorrow, Wednesday or so, we'll discuss further details on this, how this works, what's the function of the collateral, what's it doing, how does that work? Is it, it has to be the same as it, we'll discuss, but we're just going to just start here. So we're going to talk about 4 cases in the Mishnah. Let's start the first one. Somebody lends to his friend, lends him some money, ala mashkon, and he takes a collateral for it. Vavad mashkon, and the collateral gets lost. The borrower, or the lender, loses the collateral. So omralo sela hivisicha alav v'shekel hayishava. So the malva, the lender, says, the loan was for a sela, and the collateral you gave me was worth a shekel, with half that sela, with half. So okay, I lost half of the value of the loan. Let's say I lent you 100, and the collateral was worth 50. So I lost the 50, but you still owe me 50, right? And the borrower says, the lovet, lo ki ala sela hivasani. alav v'sela hayashava. And he says, no, the loan was for a sela, 100, let's say, for argument's sake, let's call it 100 shekel. And he says, the collateral that I gave you is worth 100 also. So the loan's canceled, he says, because what I owe you has been eaten up by your loss. You lost it. So he says, Potter. He's not liable to swear. Why? Because he completely denies. He's not like if he would partially admit, he would, But here, his claim is, I owe you nothing. He says, I gave you collateral for 100, and you lost it, and the loan was for 100, so it cancels out. So I owe you nothing. So he's not partially admitting. He's really denying the whole debt at this point. That's why he's Potter. He's not liable to take an oath. That's the first case. Now we have another case. Same idea. Sela hilvisicha alav. Meshekel hayeshava. He says, I lent you. The lender says, I lent you a sela, and you gave me a shekel worth collateral. So let's say it's half the value. No, he said, the borrower, the loba says, no, you lent me a sela, v'shlosha dinarim hayeshava, and the collateral is worth three dinar, which is 3/4 of that. So let's say, for argument's sake, he lent him 4 shekel, and let's say 100. Makes it much easier. 100. Let's say he lent 100 shekel. He said, I lent you 100 shekel, and you gave me collateral of 50. And the borrower says, no, you lent me 100, but the collateral was worth 75. So I don't owe you now 50. I owe you only 25. Then chayav, he would have to take an oath because the lender is claiming he still owed 50, and the borrower said he only owes 25. That's still partial admittance. He's partially admitting to the debt, and he's required to take an oath from the Torah of what's it called? Modem mixas. He has to take an oath from the Torah. Okay. Those are the first 2 cases. Right? Third case. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Fourth line from the bottom, second one in. Sela he'll be sunny. Now the borrower is doing the talking. Sela he'll be sunny. He says, I borrowed 100, let's say a sela, and in the collateral I gave you, the mashkon I gave you was worth 2, twice that. Let's say, for example, for argument's sake, let's say the loan was 100, and the borrower gave him a collateral worth 200. So the borrower is claiming you lost 200 shekel, and the loan is only for 100, so you owe me 100 shekel now. V'Allah Omar, and the Malva, the lender says, Lo, ki ala sela havisicha, alav, the sela hayeshava. He says, no, the loan was for a sela, and the collateral was a sela. Let's say, for argument's sake, the loan was for 100, and I gave you collateral of, says the lender, you gave me a collateral of 100, I lost the collateral, so it's even, we're done, I don't owe you anything. Potter, the Malva, the lender does not have to swear, because he's completely denying owing anything in that case. He does not admitting partial admitting. He's completely denying owing anything. So he would be you would not be liable to take an oath. Okay, so last case, third line from the bottom of the middle. This is again the borrower is talking here. Sel hivisani alav v'shtayim hayeshava. Same thing. He says you lent me 100 sela, and the collateral I gave you was worth twice that much. In other words, let's say for argument's sake, he says. Let's make it 200, make it easier for the case. He said, he says, you lent me 200, but the collateral I gave is worth 400. No, you lent me, I lent you a sela. It was worth 5 dinarim, it's like 5/8 of the full value. And he said, I lent you 200, and the collateral you gave me was worth 125. I got the math right? I think it's 5/8, right? Chayev is liable because he's claiming the first guy's claiming the borrower is claiming he's owed 100 back, and the lender is claiming he only owes 75. So he's partially admitting, so he has to take a shua. Okay? So now we continue. Umi nishba. So who swears in this case? Who swears? We'll discuss this further. All these things we're going to discuss further with elaboration. Umi nishba, misha pikadon etzlo. The one who has the pikadon, oh no, we switched words here. It should be mashkon. The Tosis Yom Tov discusses that. I don't know. But it means mashkan. It's a collateral deposit. Whatever, everyone, Kodim has a lot of meanings, but mashkan is a collateral. Etzlo, person is holding on to it, which means the lender, the malva. Why? Shema yishba lest we make the the borrower swear, the zeh yotze Allah esapikodim, and then the lender pulls out the bikodim, but it's worth something different. So we could come to potential false or oath here. The problem is if the let's look at Rashi. See what Rashi says. Rashi says, last Rashi, V'shema lo dictate ze b'shuma. Perhaps the borrower, when he gave the collateral, was not exact in the value of it, the valuation of the item again. If he turns out he swears falsely, he'd be invalidated as a witness and shua. I don't know. But what would happen if the lender, who's going to swear? The borrower says, I lost the collateral. They're arguing what the value of the collateral is, right? The borrower and the lender. If the borrower swears, he's only going to produce it in the end if it's actually there. If it's actually there, he's going to be accurate. He's going to say how much it is. He's not going to say something else. But the lova is claiming how much it actually is. He may have forgotten. And then if the lender actually produces it, it's not the same amount. He's going to be the status of a liar, and then he's going to lose his status of his ability to be an aid and to take a shua. Tosfos, the last Tosfos on the daf, the last line. Taima, this is how he concludes. Taima shema yotzi hala pikadom v'nimsa shuas lova levatala. Turns out he swore levatala in vain with a false oath in the name of shur deraisa, be holding a sefer Torah. And according to Rav Rishonim, would be holding in Hashem's name. That's pretty powerful stuff. So we want to make sure that he's doing it right. So the Malva knows how much that thing's worth. He's holding on to it, or he claims he lost it. But the Lova, we don't want to take any chances. So we make the lender take the oath in that case.
One possession.
The lender, yeah. He's the one who swears.
Obviously, he's only given an estimated value of what he thinks it's worth. It would be higher than what the borrower says. The borrower says 50. He says, "No, I'm sorry, I value this at 100. So therefore, you owe me 50 or whatever." So the Mishnah is saying it's in the borrower's hands.
No, right? He's saying I lost the because I lost the collateral. But when is it going to show up again? That's right. So maybe Yotzi Hala, he finds it or it takes it out again, or it magically reappears. He found it, or he admits that he has it. So if the value is off, he wouldn't. If we make him swear it, we want to make the person swear who doesn't have a less chance, who's not going to be swearing falsely. The one who's holding on to it, first he claims he didn't have it. If he says he has it, he does find it, he's going to make sure that, and he did swear, he's going to make sure that oath is in line with before he produces it. But it's out of the borrower's hands. He swore that it's worth 50. And if the lender produces it, it's going to be then they're going to have a false oath on his hand. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So therefore we switch the oath to the lender, who has control over it. The lender claims he lost it.
The borrower has to swear that it was worth X amount. Yeah. But the lender said, "No, I'm sorry, you're wrong." So who's right? Can the lender make a Shavuos and swear? Say, "No, your value this way, your value is wrong."
You don't care. That's the whole thing. But the idea is that what we said, took the fear, the fear of God was in the person.
Right.
So that made the truth came out. The idea was to try and get to the truth. That's what we're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Correct. I'm sorry? Oh, sure. Yeah.
Meda as well.
I'm trying to understand why the Pacific was to pick up earlier.
Mashkon.
Mashkon.
Yeah,
So the English.
Yeah.
Mashkon. Typical deposit.
yeah.
Little bit of knowledge I have. I think the concept of mashkon is that the person who's holding the security, it was in the third world, has the right to sell it, debt's not paid. Whereas a deposit, the person only can hold on to it literally as security
Right.
until the debt is paid. He hasn't got the right to sell it, cover the debt.
Right.
I think that
Hold on, it's
might
not-
be a difference.
Yeah.
And they're bringing, by using different terms, they're bringing different cases.
It could be.
Initially giving different scenarios.
It could be. It could be. The Tosas Yom Tov is troubled by this word to be caught on. That's a good question. Well, we will discuss all about mashkon, the collateral. It's an interesting and very lumdish topic about the malvakona mashkon, and that where is the loan is existing in the mashkon, and all sorts of interesting lumdish topics here. Okay, thanks for